Hey guys, I'm Andrew with SHTF Honey Badger. Today we're going to be going over what my current prepper EDC loadout is, and I'm going to be giving you some tips on some do's and don'ts for EDC to help you be best prepared for anything you encounter. The first thing that we're going to go over with EDC is actually how you dress. So before you even put anything else on, you're going to put on your clothes. When you put on your clothes and you're out there carrying in the public, you got to think about how you're dressed and making sure you're not standing out from the crowd. You want to avoid dressing in things like 511s, avoid dressing in stuff that's heavily associated with tactical companies, so don't be running around in crunch style shirts, don't be running around in that Ranger up apparel. Avoid that type of stuff when you're out there carrying, because that is going to make you stick out in the crowd, and that will make bad guys draw their attention to you if something happens. So that's your first thing. The next thing is make sure that you're actually dressing appropriate as well for your weather. And this is kind of a general common sense all around item, but I do want to bring it up because I do see this far too often. Don't be going out in the middle of winter wearing shorts and flip-flops. If it's cold out, dress appropriately. If it's hot out, dress appropriately. Because if you don't dress appropriately for the weather, A, you're not doing yourself any favors if something happens, because you may be freezing your butt off if you have to hike somewhere because your car broke down, or you're going to be dying in the heat because you're carrying your gun and the only way you can keep it hidden is under a jacket and it's 90 degrees outside. Don't do that. Make sure you're dressing appropriate for that weather and for what you're carrying. Now that I got that out of the way, the next thing I'm going to bring up is what you're carrying. Now, you do have different options out there for weapons to carry with you. Personally, I typically carry an M&P 2.0 and a Bravo concealment holster outside the waistband. I even carry this with a TLR1 HL on the gun. When I carry this, I have no problem keeping this concealed even under a t-shirt, as long as I'm making sure it's a loose-fitting t-shirt. So I always carry this with me. I do have an M&P 2.0 shield over here, and I do occasionally carry this, but this is only going to be in really limited situations where I need to be sure it's absolutely never going to print, or I'm carrying, more tight clothing or something where it's not really feasible to carry that larger gun. But most times carrying the larger gun is going to be a bigger advantage, and it's usually something that once you get used to it, you can dress around it and you'll be completely okay to do that. Now, the next thing I want to bring up as well after carrying your firearm is you're going to want to carry an extra magazine. So one thing I notice a lot of people do, especially with EDC carries, is they skip out on carrying that extra magazine with them. When you're carrying an extra magazine, for example, on this M&P 2.0, I go from having 16 rounds to having an additional 17 more ready to go. So I actually have more rounds in this extra magazine than I even do in the gun I'm carrying. So keep that in mind. If you're going out there and you end up in some sort of situation with a bad guy where you have to use your firearm, you don't want to be hoping that you have enough in your gun to finish the job. You want to have that capability to push out and eliminate the threat to protect yourself and others. So make sure you always carry that extra magazine. And you have a good way to retain it as well. I don't recommend carrying it in a pocket. Carry it in a magazine holster, something like this right here. They're simple to get, they're cheap. It's honestly idiot-proof to use, so keep that in mind. And they also conceal really well under the right clothing. If you're also looking to plus up a little bit, say for example, you're going into some areas you feel are a little bit more dangerous, or just the way society's going, you feel like you want to have a little bit more additional firepower, you also can jump up to stuff like a double magazine holder. These also will fit relatively well under your clothing. So if you're wanting to carry, say, 2 extra magazines instead, jumping up to something like this with an open top design with just a little bit of Kydex or a screw retention system, still going to work well. It's just giving you 1 extra magazine as a trade-off for a little bit less concealability. Now, the next thing I carry on me on my EDC would be a knife. Now, personally, I just carry a small knife like this. This is just a little Smith & Wesson money clip / pocket knife, but I have found this to be more useful than honestly most of the bigger knives. A lot of times I've noticed when I carry bigger knives, they're just uncomfortable to carry on your person. And I've noticed too, their pocket clips on the bigger designs typically just catch on stuff. And even on expensive knives, I have managed to bust the pocket clips off. So I tend to avoid those. I usually go with smaller ones. Also with stuff like this, you do have some nice little gizmos on here. It works as a bottle opener, it works as a a flathead screwdriver. And again, it technically works as a money clip if you want to use it in that way. But I recommend these little knives as they're easy to carry on you. If you lose them, you're not going to be upset. And functionality wise, they're going to work just as well 95% of the time. The next thing I carry is a watch. Personally, I just like having that ability to tell time without looking at the phone, because this is going to keep on ticking even if my phone dies if something happens. So that's just my personal opinion. The next thing I would recommend you carry is obviously cash. So in this day and age, you should definitely be carrying cash. It's really easy to get reliant and dependent on debit cards and credit cards, and those are all fun and games to carry until something happens like a power outage. Because when the power's out, they can't process that stuff. You know what they can process? They can still process your cash. So carry cash on you. That should be a part of your EDC loadout, and have that on your person ready to go if you ever need it. Another thing that I want to bring up, and this isn't something I specifically carry on my person most of the time, but I do carry in my vehicle right near me as part of my EDC, would be a flashlight. So a good quality flashlight, something that I would have. Again, you may carry it on your person. They have great options out there like Streamlight and Surefire, both make awesome little pin lights. I just personally don't carry one, as I do have a light on my firearm, and if I have to in a pinch, I have one on my cell phone. But generally speaking, I'm gonna be right near my truck when I need a flashlight anyway, so I keep a flashlight in my truck, just make sure it's good quality, and it's gonna throw that light out there when you need it. And then this is probably the biggest thing that I would recommend you carry outside of the actual firearm and stuff itself, is have a med kit. Now, this is a little bit larger one, and this isn't one that you're gonna be carrying on your person, but it's easy to carry near your person. If you're going out somewhere more remote, say you're going hiking or camping, this is still small enough you can throw it in a backpack or MOLLE attach it to a backpack. Most of the time, this is something I keep right in my car next to me anywhere I go, and it's gonna give me a lot of capability if something happens. Because, for example, if you get in a car accident or you roll up on a car accident and you have somebody laying on the road profusely bleeding, you can call an ambulance, but the average response time in this country, I believe, is around 9 minutes. And if somebody's bleeding out because their femoral artery is severed, you maybe have 1 minute until they're going to be bleeding out to a point where it's unrecoverable. They're not going to last for 9 minutes without some sort of treatment. So having stuff like a med kit is going to give you a huge amount of capability. And that's why, even for example, if you're hiking and stuff, I would recommend carrying it. Carry one that you're going to have a couple tourniquets in, some quick clots, some gauze, and trauma shears are also going to be useful, because if you do happen to be in colder climates and you do have stuff like jackets or snow pants, for example, that are going to be in your way when you're trying to put pressure on a wound or apply a tourniquet, take those trauma shears and just cut it out of the way. At that point, the most important thing is going to be stopping the bleeding. And just to give you an example of what I have in here, I just have gauze, quick clot, 2 tourniquets, and I do have a survival blanket as well. And I keep that right here in this med kit that's ready to go. And it's something that I would recommend as well. Also, keep in mind, even if you don't have proper training, most states do have Good Samaritan laws. So if you are acting in good intentions and to the best of your ability, and you're doing something to save somebody's life, typically you're going to be protected. Now, I'm not a lawyer when I say that. Definitely check your local laws, but that is one thing I do want you to keep in mind as well. So that's one reason I don't want you to shy away, is because you're afraid of that liability. But personally, this is what I carry on a consistent, everyday basis anywhere I go, and I have with me and in my vicinity. Now, what do you think? Do you have any comments, questions, concerns, any thoughts? Is there anything that you would be carrying that I don't, or that I carry that you don't? Let us know down in the comments below, and thank you for watching. Hit that like and subscribe button on your way out if you don't mind.